Hello, the Pioneer viewers. We are here with new report. The Russian-Ukrainian war still poses a threat to the West. However, this situation is being ignored. The struggle of the Ukrainian army on the front line is preventing the whole world from failing under the Russian domination. Showing a great struggle, Ukrainian troops are getting one step closer to victory every day, especially the successful defense war against Russian attacks were out the Russian army. The main defense line of the Ukrainian army is formed on the Donetsk front line. The clashes in the region are quite fierce. Russian troops cannot advance despite hundreds of casualties. Ukrainian troops are repelling the attacks of the Russian troops at every point of the front line, especially the destruction of Russian armed vehicles is the biggest obstacle to the continuation of the Russian attacks. So what is the latest situation on the front line? Let's take a look at the developments together. As the Pioneer team, we continue to inform you with our daily map reports and reports on the agenda. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so as not to miss our reports. You can also support me and my team by using the super thanks button below the video. Let's start if you're ready. The Pioneer reports. Let's start with the Kherson front line. The Kherson front line was active today as well. Let's see the area on the map. As you know, there is a move by Ukrainian army to cross to the east bank of the Dnieper River. This move has been going on for a long time. In fact, we cannot say that this move of the Ukrainian army was fruitless because there was already a Ukrainian line on the east bank of the river. We can also consider this move as a move to expand the line. When we look at the latest reports, we see that Ukrainian artillery units carried out intensive attacks on the Peshanivka and Podstpiony regions on the east bank of the Dnieper River. In the region, Ukrainian infantry units are trying to open up space for the advance of Ukrainian infantry units. For the infantry to advance, it is important that the positions in the region are cleared. Recent reports also explain that Ukrainian artillery is making a great effort in this regard. In addition, another point where clashes continue is the Krinky region. There are intense clashes between Ukrainian infantry units and the Russian infantry units in this region. However, no border change has taken place in the region so far. We have stated this many times in our previous reports. The Kherson front line is of a critical importance for the Ukrainian army's advance to the Crimean Peninsula. The Ukrainian army has been signaling for a long time that the pressure on the Crimean Peninsula would increase. Therefore, it is not possible to say that the developments on the Kherson front line are a surprise. If these attacks are analyzed on the basis of the situation in which the Syrian army is in, they can be considered a surprise because the Russian army thought that it has the opportunity to advance in the Ukrainian territory while the world was distracted. However, it failed to make any significant progress, especially during the intensified attacks on the Donetsk front line. The Russian army thought that the Ukrainian army would deal with the defense issue in the meantime. Therefore, it was a big surprise for the Russian army when the Ukrainian army activated the Kherson front line and attacked in the Russian army. Let us continue with the artillery activities in the region. According to the latest reports, Russian artillery units targeted Ukrainian positions in Kherson, Zelivnivka, Sodyodny, Tiganika, Kostanyotki, Briska, and Zmiyivka. Ukrainian artillery units targeted Russian forces in Alyoshki, Krasnonka, and Dnepryani, and Novaya Kakhovka. Now let's continue with reports by analyzing latest developments on the Zaporizhia front line. First, let's open the Zaporizhia front line on the map. We start with the Robotny region. According to the latest reports, Russian forces launched an attack on the Novopokrovka line. This attack was successfully repelled by the Ukrainian defense forces. Today, Ukrainian offensive forces were more passive compared to the past days. They did not make any attacks. However, Ukrainian artillery units were active. According to the latest reports from the region, there were no significant developments. Therefore, we conclude today's regional report by monitoring the artillery activity here. According to the latest reports, Russian artillery struck Ukrainian positions in Kamenskoye, Robotny, Malaya Tokmakcha, Belgoryo, and Guliapolsky. In turn, Ukrainian artillery units targeted Russian positions in Stryanka, Kopani, Salatkambalka, Ichenko, Novoprokopivka, Verbov, Novopokrovka, and Novofedoryovka. I would like to continue by analyzing the latest situation in the Vuhledar sector of the Zaporizhia front line. According to the latest reports, Russian offensive forces were quite active in the Vuhledar sector. They carried out active offensive actions in the Novodonetsk and Novomyrsk area, but there are no results. The Ukrainian defense forces in the region managed to repel the Russian assault groups. Again, there was a calmer day in the region compared to the past days. Therefore, we continue with the artillery attacks. According to the latest report, artillery units of the Russian armed forces hit Ukrainian positions in Stromyrsk, Bladortsky, Yorkhain, Zolotstoy, Niva, and Vuhledar. In turn, Ukrainian artillery units targeted Russian positions in Priodny, Zavitny-Bezhania, Stromolinka, Novodonetsk, and Novomyrsk. Let us continue by analyzing the latest developments on the Donetsk front line. As you know, the Russian army is carrying out extremely violent attacks in this region. Although these attacks are fierce, the Russian army is not successful. In other words, even if it's successful, it is quite low despite the intensity of these attacks. So what's the reason for this? Of course, the strategy put forward by the staff of the Ukrainian army. As you know, the Avdiivka region is a very critical region and it's located on the Donetsk front line. This region is just like the city of Bakhmut. Both roads leading to Kiev, the capital of Ukraine, and the main supply lines of the Ukrainian army were located in this region. Ukrainian strategists predicted that the Ukrainian army would attack here. Therefore, the region was fortified for a long time. Preparations for the Russian attack that would start here were started for a very long time. Today, this preparation is exhausting and wearing out the Russian army. The Russian army is, of course, making gains. It would be absurd not to make gains in such a violent attack. However, so few gains are a sign that the Russian army has failed. When we look at the latest reports, the Russian army continued its attacks around Novomikhailovka. Apart from this attack, the attack activity of the Russian army was not significant. Russian artillery units were active near Pobeda. During these attacks, there was no change of the area. Ukrainian defense forces repelled these puny attacks of the Russian army. Let's also mention the artillery activity in the region. According to the latest reports, Russian artillery units targeted Ukrainian positions in Pervomaiskoye and Alexandropol, New York, and Donetsk. On the other hand, Ukrainian artillery units hit the positions of the Russian armed forces in the Donetsk, Opytny, and Krasnohorivka. What do you think? Was the offensive launched by the Ukrainian army in the Kherson a surprise? Was the Russian army unprepared for the Kherson offensive? What do you think about the offensive of the Russian army on the Donetsk front line? Do you think the Ukrainian defense forces are successful? Let me know in the comments. I read and care about all your comments.